Today, as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Mayor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Kazandjian.
Here.
Councilor Lenzi.
Here.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Armand Mercier.
Here.
Councilor Rita Mercier.
Here.
9 present.
The chair would like to recognize Councilor Rita Mercier, Councilor Armand Mercier, Councilor Michael Lindsay, and the mayor will also have a moment of silence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in docking chamber for 3 remarkable individuals who served this city well. Leo Brown, beloved husband of Anne, resided in the Centerville section of the city. Leo was a City of Lowell employee who worked at the Pollard Memorial Library and the Messenger Department, and he was present on many Saturdays to help us with our numerous flag-raising ceremonies. Personally, he was the main influence in helping me to quit smoking. I met him shopping with his lovely wife, and he was buying the patch. I asked if I could monitor him as to how he was doing on this patch, and because it was working for him, I was convinced that it would work for me, and it was through his efforts that I am smoke-free. Besides surviving him, besides his lovely wife, Anne, our 3 children, Karen, Kate, and Ken, and his 2 grandchildren, Mackenzie and William. Secondly, John Bernard Harrigan, beloved husband of Helen. Helen worked in the purchasing department for many years. Helen and John would have celebrated 61 years of marriage this June. John went to work for the Lowell Post Office, where he retired after 25 years of service. John joined the United States Navy during World War II, serving from 1943 to 1946 throughout the South Pacific aboard the battleship USS Washington. Mr. Harrigan received the World War II Victory Medal, the American Area Medal, the Asiatic Pacific Medal with 7 stars, and the Philippine Liberation Medal with 2 stars. Besides his wife Helen, he is survived by his daughter Joanne Gitchia, who works in the city's water utility department, 3 sons, David, Patrick, and Christopher, 11 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. Also, Mr. Harrigan was predeceased by his 3 sons, James, Joseph, and John, Happy Harrigan. And Mary Maroon Alcara, a well-known resident of Lowell, survived by her beloved husband, Joseph Alcara. This year, Mr. and Mrs. Alcara would have celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary. I'm very proud of the fact that Mrs. Alcara was one of the first women in the city of Lowell to own and operate a business. On September 16, 1943, she opened the Vogue Beauty Salon, one of the first of a chain of full-care hair salons. Mrs. Alcara received her formal training on Fifth Avenue in New York City, and in 1946, she went on to win the prestigious Statler Award in hairstyling. She was considered the hairdresser of the stars, with patrons to include the famous Judy Garland, Frank Sinatra, Bob Hope, Jacqueline Kennedy, and our very own Betty Davis. She turned every business venture into a successful enterprise. Along with the beauty business, the Alcaras were very successful in real estate ventures to include the Alcara Place and Alcara Yard projects, and Oncitos Fashions on Merrimack Street. For more than 50 years, the Alcaras spearheaded the St. Jude Research Hospital for leukemia-stricken children. Besides her loving husband, Joseph, she is survived by her 4 daughters, Dr. Mary Jo Alcara, who is here this evening with her father, Mary Jo Alcara Noor, Dr. Adele Alcara Hashim, Attorney Joanne Alcara Verhulst, and Dr. Colette Alcara, as well as their 6 grandchildren. We offer our sympathies to the families of all three of these people that I mentioned, Leo Brown, John Harrigan, and Mary Alcara. They will be truly missed. May they rest in peace. Thank you.
Councilor Armin Mercia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I would like to request a moment of silence in Darton Chambers also for a good friend of mine and my family, Lorraine Pickard Maralt. Lorraine was a lifelong resident of the Pawtucket section of Lowell, and she died on March 17th. And she was the beloved wife of Raymond D. Maralt, with whom she celebrated 54 years of marriage this past October. Lorraine attended St. Joseph's High School, St. Joseph's Grammar School, and she graduated from Lowell General Hospital School of Nursing in the class of 1954. She was a member of the former St. Jean d'Arc Parish. Lorraine loved to spend time in the winter at her home in Florida along with her husband and best friend, and he really was her best friend, playing cards and golfing, and she really enjoyed the winter months in Florida. In addition to her husband, Raymond, she is survived by 3 daughters and a son. One of the daughters is part of the municipal family. Her name is Cheryl Sequelia, and she is a music teacher at the Wang School. And of course, her husband, Dan, is a former member of the Board of Appeals. She also leaves 5 grandchildren, of which she loved very dearly. And at her eulogy, one of her son-in-laws made it very clear, and we all agree with it, Lorraine was the glue that kept that family together. She's going to be sadly missed by her family, her friends, and particularly me and my family. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Michael Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence and darken the council chambers in memory of Bridget Ellen Torpy, who went home to God on Tuesday, March 17th. She was born in Lowell on January 23, 1965. She was the daughter of Thomas and Barbara Merritt Torpy. Bridget grew up in the Highlands section of Lowell and attended St. Margaret's School. She was a graduate of Lowell High School, and she went on to attend the New England Hair Academy. She loved the beach, camping, and spending time with her daughter and grandson, and she will be dearly missed by her family and friends.
Thank you. And the mayor would like to offer a moment of silence, Darken Chambers, for John Jack McDowell, a loving husband, father, grandfather, well-respected and loved throughout the entire city of Lowell. Let us all rise in a moment of silence and Darken Chambers, please. May they rest in peace. We have some special guests in the council chambers this evening, and these guests are going to speak on some important issues that are coming forward. One is a fundraiser for community teamwork. The other is to stress how important the census will be taken in the coming year. And here to speak on the census, which is extremely important for the City of Lowell and the 5th Congressional District, I'd like to welcome to the podium Mr. Vaughn Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Manager, councilors, and again, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to address the council tonight on the importance of this 2010 census. The census operation has started a couple years ago. The census has been working with the City of Lowell as well as U.S. Postal Office to acquire addresses from all over the country. And the City of Lowell is one of the leaders in terms of cooperating with the census and had been providing the address to the census office. Presently, we are in the process of verifying those addresses. The census had just hired thousands of people to go across America to each of the addresses that we have. And what we will do with those addresses is to knock on the door and ask the resident that is this the address that we have, or if there's any more, is there any additional addresses that we should be mailing the form to. And it's important for us to cooperate with that because the end of March of next year, we will be sending the forms to each of the address, each of the address that we have, and we will expect the form back by April 1st. So that being said, our city is one of our target city because the population we have. Over 20% of our city is foreign-born. People have different issues in filling out the forms, whether they're fear, whether language, whether other issues that's involved in the census operation that are causing them not to send out the form. So, with your leadership, there are different steps that we could do to encourage people in our community to send out the form, send the form back. One of them is forming, as you did in 2000, a task force. But this year, we will call it a complete count committee. And the complete count committee, there will be city levels. We can go as low as community levels, because people that have fear of filling out these forms need reassurances from many people in our community, both from the government leadership, religious leaders, as well as ethnic community organization leaders, to say that it is important for us, each of us, to fill out the form and send it back, because this will affect the funding that comes to the city, as well as the congressional representation in each of our cities. So that being said, I have been working with your office, Mr. Mayor, as well as Mr. Manager's office, as well as I have been talking to about 100 businesses, both mainstream as well as Cambodian, Brazilian, Spanish, and church leaders have been very, very cooperative in saying they will get involved in asking people that to make sure that they answer the door for this address canvassing, and that we start talking about our fears now, because it doesn't matter whether we have documentation or not. It doesn't matter whether we have 3 or 4 families living in one house. It is important for each of us to get the forms and send it back. So we appreciate all the councilors and the leaders to, again, get involved and make this a community involvement, not the government looking for data about each of us. So thank you for allowing me to address the council, and I'll take any questions.
Mr. Ross, I might say that they have chosen a very dedicated person to chair this very important census, and I know you're working tirelessly on this effort. Manager Lynch, his administration, the mayor's office, and the city will do everything they can to assist you and make sure we get a correct count for 2010. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now it is with great pleasure that I invite to the podium 2 women who don't need any introduction. They work tirelessly at Community Teamwork, and there's an important fundraiser coming up April 23rd at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium, and Karen Fredericks and Sharon Shelton will explain this fundraiser to you, and if you're interested, please listen to them, because they have tickets for sale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, and Manager Lynch, for the opportunity to tell you about Community Teamwork's 7th annual fundraiser, April 23rd, at Lowell Memorial Auditorium, and to certainly ask for your continued support. I also have to thank Councilors Jim Milanazzo and Rita Mercier, who are active members of CTI's Board of Directors. Thank you so much. And Mayor Caulfield and Rita Mercier, who are co-chairs of our fundraising event, along with our honorary co-chairs, Lieutenant Governor Murray, Congresswoman Tsongas, and the entire local delegation. We are raising money to prevent and end homelessness, working in collaboration with the city's 10-year plan, and also in collaborations with the Merrimack Valley Regional Network to end homelessness. And that was the regional effort was kicked off Monday, right in the mayor's reception room, with the Lieutenant Governor here to talk about this regional approach to ending homelessness. Right here in the Merrimack Valley, there are 137 families tonight in shelters. 160 individuals in shelters, 30 families in hotels. There are also many more doubling up, living in cars, woods, and unfortunately on the streets. We can do something about this, and we will. Our communities have banded together to raise flexible funds so that we can provide the right resource at the right time. We have to do this. We have to identify people before they come homeless when the really costly initiatives kick in, and that's motels, shelters. Much more costly to do that than to spend flexible money on things that people need, like first and last month's rent, a car repair, simple things that can keep somebody housed. It's the right thing to do, and it saves money. So when an illness comes, a layoff, or an unexpected bill comes in, we want to be there with the flexible funds and keep people in their homes. Sharon Shelton gets the fun part to tell you about the event. She's CTI's Community Relations Director, and she also throws the best party in the Merrimack Valley. Sharon?
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for inviting us here tonight to speak before the council. Let me just reiterate, on Thursday, April 23rd, from 6 to 10 p.m. at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium, we'll be hosting a very fun Key West Jimmy Buffett-themed party fundraiser to help raise those flexible funds that you just heard Karen talking about. The evening itself is replete with delicious island food, with towers of carved fruit, all beautifully prepared by Lindsay's. We have a terrific Jimmy Buffett and Caribbean band called Changes in Latitudes. We have a live and a silent auction. We have costume contests and dance contests. We have fortune tellers. We even have a $10,000 grand prize drawing. All this to raise money for homelessness. The evening is a true tropical blast. Everyone who's come, all 550 people who came last year, had a great time. And being transported at that time of year after a long, cold winter, you're ready. We want you to be ready with us and come to that party in a spirit of celebration. Join us that night and help seal our victory in raising the amount of funds that we need in order to help more families this year. Last year, we raised enough funds when paired with program resources. We were able to help over 700 families, many of them children, stay in their own homes, avoid the tragedy of homelessness in their lives. This community helped make that possible. There's several ways you can help, and I'll be very specific. You can purchase a ticket for $100. You can call me over at Community Teamwork, and I'll, with wings on, be able to transport it over to you. This means 2 people can come to this event. Two colleagues, your wife, your partner, and it's a great time. Also, you're entered into the $10,000 grand prize drawing. You can make a donation to our silent and live auctions. Some of you have, I'm sure, wonderful ideas for that. Or you can become a business sponsor of the event. Your support literally will help hundreds of hardworking families that live right here in this area. Children, veterans, seniors, people with disabilities. These are the extraordinary numbers of people who are turning to us for help. We absolutely cannot do it without you. We absolutely need your help, your participation, and we actually look forward to it because it will be a lot of fun. And thank you.
Sharon, where can people purchase the tickets?
They can call me at Community Teamwork at 978-459-0551 and ask for Sharon.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor.
And good luck with the fundraiser.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the last council.
Mr. Mayor, I have a ticket on me now. If there's any rich people in here that want to donate, I have one right here if you need one. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll now entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the last council meeting by Councilor Milonazo, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercia. All in favor, signify by saying aye. The minutes have been accepted and placed on file. Moving on with the agenda, the communications from City Manager Lynch. Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually have 3 items, if I could. The first has to do with a letter from the city manager dealing with the Neighborhood Impact Initiative. I want to commend the manager and his staff for agreeing to start that again for FY 2010, beginning with Community Development Block Grant Funds, $425,000. And again, this was an initiative that former City Manager Brian Martin and former City Manager John Cox had worked on in different neighborhoods, so I'm pleased to see that the manager's impact team will again be going out starting, I believe it'll be July 1st of this year, using the CDBG fund. So again, just to bring that to the attention of the viewing audience. The other thing I did also find on the city manager's website that we were honored with an e-government award. And again, congratulations to the administration and specifically to the city clerk, because we were actually given the award for keeping board agendas, minutes, zoning bylaws, and the like. So again, only 46 cities and towns from across the Commonwealth out of the 351 cities and towns actually received this award. So again, I think it's important to make note that Lowell was one of the 46 cities and towns that did receive the award. And the other item I'd like to touch upon is the operational assessment that we received in our packets on the Paul E. Songus Arena. And to really cut to the chase, I would like to request that this be forwarded to the Arena Subcommittee to be reviewed. So I'd like to put that in the form of a motion to forward the assessment that was done by PA Sports and Entertainment to the subcommittee to be reviewed and brought back
Second.
to the council, if I could.
Motion by Councilman Malinowski to forward the accounting and the, I think it was from the PSA.
Correct.
Sports,
PA Sports and
accounting
Entertainment.
of the Songus Arena, and forward that to the Arena Commission for their review.
And
Yes,
I
second.
believe we have a subcommittee of the
Yeah.
council as well.
Yes,
So I mean,
we do.
again, I think.
In the
You
subcommittee as
second
well.
that motion?
Second, yes.
Seconded by Council Rita Mercia. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. And anyone else who would like to discuss?
Thank you.
Yes.
Council Rita Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, too, wanted to talk about the Massachusetts Campaign for Open Government, the e-Government Award. Thank you and congratulations. I wanted to mention that as well. I also want to just talk about very briefly, and I'm so excited about this, and I'm pleased to know that you formally announced a decision to appoint Michelle Romalo as the new director of the Council on Aging. Thank you very much. I'm sure I was there today, as a matter of fact. The people are all excited about that. She deserves it immensely, so thank you very much for that, Mr. Manager. And lastly, in our packet was a communication regarding the cable television renewal license agreement with Comcast, and I'd like to make a motion that this be referred to the Council's Cable TV Subcommittee, of which I am the chair, along with Councilor Alan Kazanjian and Councilor Mike Lindsay and Councilor Bill Martin. This is a four-member committee, and we have some questions we'd like to ask, and I'm sure would like to peruse it and come back with a recommendation, Mr. Manager. So I'd like to,
I think Council Martin's the chair of that committee.
oh, are you?
I think so, yes.
Okay, then I'll be a member. Am I on it? Am I
Yes, you
even
are.
on it?
You are, you are.
Okay.
But
Oh,
a
that's
motion
good
by
then.
Council Rita Mercia
I'll
to
second
forward
that.
this,
Second.
this information to the Council Cable TV
Yes,
Subcommittee,
thank you.
which Council Martin chairs.
Oh, I'm
Seconded
sorry.
I'll second.
Seconded
Yep.
by Councilor Martin. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That motion carries as well. Any other communications? Councilor Alan Kazanjian.
Thank you, Mayor. This is to the manager. The Songus Arena, how are you making out with that? I know you talked to the senator this past week, is that correct?
In terms of the conversations regarding the university, yes, I met with the senator late last week. He provided me with a proposal from the chancellor, a counter proposal to the one that I had presented through the senator several weeks back. We're reviewing it right now, analyzing it, and I hope to have that completed by the beginning of the week, excuse me, at the end of this week, and at which time we'll try to do some negotiations, and I'll be sending on that analysis to the council with some thoughts and recommendations.
Okay, great. Also, one other thing on the community block grant funds. I'm just looking through that, and it shows that Trinity Financial received $200,000. Is that something that we normally do, give it to a private developer? I don't know.
Is that in the, that's in the
It's,
annual action plan,
It's
Mr.
on
Bakey?
it's on the home activities, and also there's one other one, Bank of America.
Right.
We gave
Those are the
gave them
right.
$150,000.
Those are fairly traditional that we allocate those funds to developments that are occurring in the city to provide housing opportunities. But I'll ask Mr. Bakey to speak specifically to any.
I don't have a whole lot to add to that other than to say that in many cases it's more cost effective for either for-profit or not-for-profit private developers to construct housing for workforce and affordability than it is for the public sector to do it 100%. And the state, which generally provides the bulk of the funding for these types of activities, has in recent years made it almost a prerequisite for state funds that there be some local home funds in projects that are seeking state funding. And that's part of the reason why the two that you mentioned are on this list. And in the past, we've had a number of other projects, both for-profit and not-for-profit, that have been funded in a similar manner using our home program funds.
Did they receive the $200,000 already, or does it go in piecemeal? How does that work?
No, they won't receive that for.
Yeah, the way this is the draft annual action plan for the 2010 fiscal year.
Okay.
And it's now currently in a public comment period. At the conclusion of the public comment period, the full annual action plan, the final version, is brought to the City Council for City Council action on it. Should the City Council adopt it, it then gets forwarded to HUD for HUD's approval, and then the funds would then be available beginning in July with the new fiscal year for all the entities that are on that list as receiving funds.
Okay, so now I just have a quick question. If another developer comes into the city and he's doing a big project, can he receive funds like this also?
In subsequent years, it's possible that there'll be an allocation of that sort, yes.
Okay, all right, thank
And
you.
again, I think it's important to note that, as Adam mentioned, generally these allocations of our local home funds are used to leverage state resources to put into these types of projects.
And this is here for the Appleton Mills, so $200,000 will go into the renovation of the Appleton Mills.
That's correct.
Right.
Council Lindsay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to say I think Michelle Romalo is a terrific choice to succeed Lynn Brown-Zunis at the Senior Center, and adds a lot of continuity to what's taking place over there. I'd also like to thank the administration for their quick response on, I received numerous calls of people who didn't have bins for recycling and things, and the response has been terrific. I'd like to thank T.J. McCarthy in particular for just, within 24 hours, people had what they needed or their questions were addressed, so good job.
Okay. Council Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, we received a communication from you, actually from Christine O'Connor, regarding update on indemnification. Can you just give us an update? I mean, this indicates that currently counsel for the defendant police officers have agreed to work with the city. Is there any update, or can you give us an explanation as to what this is all about? I know she says bring it up at the next meeting, but Solicitor Fenton's here. I don't know if he has any more of an update on that.
Right. This is a case that the City Council approved indemnification. I believe it was 3 years ago, and 3 or 4 years ago, and it was recently brought to our attention that a conclusion has been reached. So we've been working, it was forwarded on to me, and I referred it to the city solicitor's office. We've been in touch with the police officers' attorneys to try to work with them to work with the plaintiff's attorney on the final resolution of this matter. So I know that the solicitor spoke to the lawyer that represented the police officers as recently as, I believe, yesterday, and they're very interested in working with us to complete this project.
Okay, thank you.
Case.
Any other concerns? Council Martin?
I just wanted to, I think everybody addressed the other things I wanted to talk about, but the one left I thought was the report we got on the status of the Hamilton Canal project in response to Councilor Broderick's motion. I was really quite pleased with this report. I think, you know, it certainly, there's a long way to go in this project, but I think the fact that the developers completed the local permitting process, that they have, they anticipate soon having gone through the historic approval process, the fact that they're ready to file a final environmental impact report, all speaks to, I think, positive news for the city. I haven't been involved in some of these projects of this scope, and the work, and more importantly, the money that needs to be spent to do something like file with MEPA an environmental impact report, you know, shows that I think this developer is committed to this project. I mean, I know capital markets are in flux, and there's probably not firm commitments for financing in the specific construction phases, but it's good to see that the developer is at least putting some of its own resources and getting this thing moving. At least what I took from this report is that people aren't sitting around waiting on their hands, that there's some real progress being made. So I was happy to see it. I thought it was a pretty good report.
Thank you. Before I accept the communications and place them on file, I just have one question. It was pertaining to Councilor Allen Kazanjian brought up, Mr. Manager, Adam, that $200,000 that's allocated to Trinity Financial, that $200,000 can only be spent on low-income housing or address the housing issues?
Yeah, it can only be spent on the Appleton Mills property and related to the production of housing at that property.
Housing, and that will be accounted for if the money is granted them. Okay.
Absolutely. There'll be deed restrictions and mortgages and all sorts of other lengthy agreements associated with that money.
Thank you. Accept the communications and place them on file by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All in favor, signify by saying aye. The communications are placed on file. We're entering now the public hearing. And those wishing to speak in favor, just give us your name and address, or those wishing to speak in opposition, give us your name and address. An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Chapter 270 thereof entitled Waste and Recycling. Those wishing to speak in favor of this ordinance, please come forward to the podium and give us your name and address, please.
Mr. Mayor, City Member, City Council members, and City staff, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Stephen Green. I reside at 181 Market Street, and I want to speak in favor, but in a cautionary note for this ordinance. The definition is straightening out a problem that was sort of created through other problems associated with this transition to the pay-as-you-throw program. I want to point out that each unit that's served by this this definitional change ends up being subsidized to the tune of $175 per unit, and that's money that comes out of the general coffers. So think of it as every 100 units that you add on, that's $17,000 that's no longer available from our general tax funds. Now, with that said, I mean, we just need to manage it well and make sure that these folks, especially the rental units that are involved here, are doing their recycling. And if we recycle well within the city, if we could get the recycling rate up to 40 or 50%, we could save $1 million on our tipping fees. So I want to support this, but I also want to sort of urge us on to manage this well and get the recycling rate up. Remember that a third of the city who also pays taxes doesn't have any access to any of these trash or recycling. So, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to come forward and speak in favor? In favor? In favor? That public hearing is closed. Those wishing to come and speak in opposition? Who would like to speak in opposition? Opposition? There is no opposition. Public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move approval.
Move approval by Council Rita Mercia, seconded by Council Martin. Would you like to discuss this amendment before we take a roll call?
Could you just read the new definition of household to make sure that we got it right?
This is This is the amendment, Counselor. This is the first paragraph. Household, a building consisting solely of dwelling units and containing no more than 1 to 4 said units and no more than 6 provided that said household is owner occupied, is hereby amended to read as follows. Household, a building consisting solely of dwelling units and containing no more than 1 to 4 said units and no more than 6 provided that the said household is owner-occupied or dwelling units in a mixed-use building that contain no more than 1 to 4 units. What was stricken is where 1 unit is owner-occupied.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
Any other questions pertaining to that? If none, roll call.
Counselor Milonazo,
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield,
Yes.
Counselor Elliott, Counselor Kazandrian.
Yes.
Counselor Lenzi.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
We have 2 out-of-state travel requests from the police department. Any questions on these requests? Counsel Lindsay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On this particular request, I just want to extend a note of congratulations to Captain Kevin Sullivan, where he was actually nominated to attend this session. So I think that's an honor that he would be nominated to do that, and it's probably much easier to say yes to this out-of-state travel request.
And we'll certainly get that message to Captain Sullivan, who's an outstanding. Council Martin?
And it's at no cost to the city to send him to this FBI program.
Right. Any other questions? If none, roll call.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kazandrian.
Yes.
Counselor Lenzi.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
An ordinance amending the new Code of Ordinances for the City of Lowell, Massachusetts, the code with respect to Chapter 266 thereof entitled Vehicles and Traffic. With the council's approval, this will be going to a public hearing April 14th. So moved by Councilor Arman Mercia, seconded by Councilor Lindsay. Councilor Rita Mercia.
Mr. Mayor, and when it does go to the public hearing, could we check on that Livingston Street on Carter Street? I believe it's 87. It says it in the, I don't want it to go to a public hearing with the wrong address, because that's my motion. I think it's 87 Livingston Street, not 77. Can we check that before it comes back to us? I'm sure it is 87.
There's a
It says
possibility we
it,
can call the law office, Mr. Manager, make sure that's the right address.
it says it in the memorandum, the right address, but in the ordinance it does not. I want to correct it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on with the agenda. Vote. Authorizing the city manager to accept the proposal of Coppin Realty Incorporated in the amount of $350,000 to purchase property located at 1769 Middlesex Street, Lowell, and to execute all documents necessary for the transfer of the property. Whereas the City of Lowell owns the property at 1769 Middlesex Street, Lowell, Mass., having acquired title thereof by final judgment and tax foreclosure recorded in Middlesex North District Registry of Deeds in Book 21986, page 233. Whereas the City Council of the City of Lowell voted on September 23, 2008, to declare the property located at 1769 Middlesex Street Road surplus and offer the same for sale under the provisions of the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30B, with the minimum proposal price of $350,000. Whereas the City of Lowell issued a request for proposal for the sale of 1769 Middlesex Street with certain conditions contained therein, and whereas Coppin Realty Incorporated did submit a proposal to the City of Lowell containing a minimum proposed price of $350,000, and whereas the city manager has recommended to the City Council that the city accept the proposal, enter into a purchase and sale agreement with a cross agreement with Coppin Realty Incorporated. Now therefore, be it voted that the city manager and the city treasurer be and they are hereby authorized in the name of the City of Lowell to sell and convey to Coppin Realty Incorporated. Our nominee is approved by the city manager for the sum of $350,000 on such terms and conditions as the city manager deems in the best interest of the City of Lowell. The property located at 1769 Middlesex Street, Lowell, owned by the City of Lowell, to execute all documents necessary for the transfer of the property, including but not limited to access agreement with purchase and sale agreement, deed, execution and delivery, release of any demolition lien, lien, and any other related documents pertaining to the sale and transfer of said property consistent with this vote. Motion to waive the full reading by Counsel Elliott, seconded by Counsel Armin Mercia. All in favor of waiving the full reading signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The full reading has been waived. Those wishing to come forward and speak in favor of this vote, please do so. And we do have, I'll move to suspension of the rules by Counsel Milonazo, seconded by Counsel Rita Mercia. All in favor of the suspension, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The suspensions are in order. Those people wishing to come forward to the podium that's in favor of this, please come forward. Just give us your name and address, please.
My name is Robert Massey. I live at 17 Edward Street, Lowell, Mass. And I am in favor of this. We have a street down there and an area down there that's been getting flooded for over 25 years. There are 2 septic systems on the land. The city has tried and tried to relieve the water problem. They put pumps in, the pumps burn out. The water table is so high down there that there's no way that they can keep up with it, they've told us. And they have also made, the Realty Group have also made an agreement with the one person who wanted to stay, who lives down at the end, and they've agreed to take his house and completely either rebuild it or raise it up, give him storage, get rid of the septic systems, and basically give him a new house for him and his wife to live in for the rest of their lives. And I believe then it will turn back over to Kaufman Realty. My piece of land, I own 3 lots, which I can't do very much with. It has a septic system. I haven't got the ability to put anything in there to be able to sell that. So I can't even sell this piece of property, the three lots that I have. So to me, it's sort of a no-brainer. It's 350,000 reasons to vote for it. And I strongly ask the City Council to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, James Flood, I represent Kaufman Realty. And we are here to hopefully get a vote that you will accept our response to the request for proposals. I know there's been some concern about various portions of this development, but this is just the first step. We still have to come back to this council because part of our proposal is to relocate Edward Street, and the council is the only one that can do that. We also have to go to the planning board for site plan approval, and we also have to go to the Board of Appeals for a special permit for a drive-through. So this is just the first step, and we'd like to get started. I don't think the City Council is the place to discuss the issues involved, and I think the planning board and the Board of Appeals is. It's properly zoned, and we're ready to go. In addition to paying the $350, my client has worked very closely with Jeff Gomes, who's the traffic engineer for the city, and they are going to spend an additional approximately $300,000 in traffic improvements. So I would ask that this board vote favorably on our response and hopefully accept our bid, and so we can proceed further. Thank you.
Anyone else like to come to the podium to speak in favor? In favor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilmen and women. Thank you. Let me speak. My name is Ken Kaiser. I am involved in this project.
Excuse me, where do you live?
Ken Kaiser. I own the property at 17.
Where's your address?
45 Middlesex Street. It's my office, my business address. I also own 2 adjacent properties which are part of this project. The piece of land that's involved is a 50-foot wide strip. By itself, it's almost worthless. To build a building on 50 feet of frontage and right next to the bridge would not, I don't think a business there would go there. And it's for someone to pay $350,000, that's a big chunk of change, and I think this council and the city should accept that, especially in these economic times. I own several other properties around the city, and I drive the city all day long, and I go across all the bridges, and I know that they're crowded at times, And there is a new CVS pharmacy on Bridge Street, which they did a remarkable job. It's a much better site over there than the bar room that was there before, and I haven't noticed any additional traffic in that area. That is considered, I think, the worst intersection in the area, and I think they did a great job there. I think the city needs this money, needs this project, needs the tax revenue that goes along with it. As landlords, we're facing increased expenses of water and sewer, trash, taxes, and our expenses have gone up considerably. Our values have dropped 50% in the last 3 years. It's very difficult to be a landlord in the city right now when the rental rates have not increased in over 5 years. So I'm for this project, not just as a person involved, but as a taxpayer in the city of Lowell. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to come to the podium to speak in favor? In favor? Okay, now I'll open up the discussion to those who oppose. Just come to the podium, your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Diane Poole. I live at 24 Cornell Street. And it's a general statement speaking on behalf of my neighbors that couldn't make it due to either work or family responsibilities. I can say that we are against this. And the main reason being is the congestion of the traffic is already horrendous. You're talking about having 28,000 vehicles traversing this area. And now with the new Walgreens, it's going to probably produce an additional 1,500 more. And we just do not have any more room for these cars. We have enough traffic in this area. I've lived here for 20 years. I have neighbors who have lived here for 50 years, 43 years. And we've seen the progress, and don't believe this is progress. And just because you can build this doesn't mean you should. And as a personal resident of this street, I can tell you that I honestly feel for the people on Edward Street. If that was me, I'd rather sell my property as well. You're right. But what that does do, potentially, not being an engineer on my part, is once you put Walgreens in, if there's already a high water table there, and I already have a high water table on my property, I pay flood insurance, what's going to happen when you put concrete, asphalt, whatever? Does it act as a plug to Walgreens? Does that mean I'm going to have a swimming pool in my basement, potentially? And Edward Street is going to be moved, it's my understanding, directly across from Cornell Street, making it a 24/7 free-for-all where cars can go up and down. We already have speeding cars, which we try to work with the police and solve that problem. This is just going to make it worse. We have enough traffic in the area. We do not need any more, which is why we do not want any kind of business going on that street corner. It's busy enough. It is one of the worst intersections in the state of Massachusetts. And having lived there for how many years, I think we just deserve a little bit of consideration. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to come to the podium? Yes, ma'am. Just speak right into that microphone and give us your name and address, please.
Okay. Ruth Pagola, 630 Princeton Boulevard, Unit 6, the Brooksides. I represent 43 units. There's 3 trustees, well, 2 others beside myself here tonight, and we do not want this. With the traffic and everything else and the flooding, and I agree with everything. I back her up, and so do everybody. I've been here over 20 years, very happy, but we definitely do not want that in our area, and I hope it doesn't come about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to come to the podium and speak in opposition? I know, looking at the people, there's about 10 people here from that neighborhood. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Kula Ryan. I live in 20 Columbia Street, and I just wanted to remind everybody there's a business going on the corner of Wood Street in Middlesex. There are going to be 5 stores there, and plus they gave license to the Midway to sell used car sales. So there's already many businesses going in that corner, and I can't understand how many more businesses you can put in the worst intersection. And I agree the traffic is terrible in Columbia Street. I'm right across the street from there, and I don't think I can take any more traffic.
Ma'am, can we just get your name one more time?
Kula Ryan, 20 Columbia Street.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to
My name is Diane Plant. I lived at 21 Cornell Street in Lowell. I lived there for about 50 years. And as my neighbor stated, we have too much traffic as it is on our street, and I grew up there all my life. To see the changes and the developments that's taken place, it's not fair to the traffic that we foresee now. And like today, there was an accident on the Rock Bridge. They had to close the bridge, backed up all the traffic. No emergency vehicles can go over there, and you want to add more traffic to that area? I don't think this should be agreed upon. And I hope you decide on, the faith of what we're trying to get at is there's too much traffic now. We have a new development that's going to be building that's already been approved, and now you want to add another new complex? It's unbelievable. Stop and think, if you lived in that neighborhood, what it would be like. You would be going through what we're going through and what we're seeing, and we're only telling you the truth. It has to stop. You're developing all these new development places in one small area. Why not build it across the river? And I don't want to jump the gun and say that, but they need something over there. There is no businesses over there for them. We already have 2 pharmacies. We got one 24 hours already, CVS, and they do business. There's no need to add another large business in that area. And I hope you decide on us. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to?
Scott Haberman, I live on 43 Cornell Street. I'm the one that's 43 years, so been there a long time. Same thing, lovely temporary bridge, 1983. We've been a cut-through, if anybody's been there, since 1983. So it's just common sense, and if anything goes straight across Middlesex Street from our street, and they can go back either way, we're going to turn into like a main road. My kids are getting older. There's also younger ones now in the neighborhood again. It's just not good. Again, same thing. We don't need another place. Doesn't matter if it's Walgreens or anybody. And once it's done, and then we'll have to live with it, and I'm sure it's not going to be good. No engineering is going to fix this. There's not enough room. Unless you made two lanes going across the Rock Bridge or another bridge or something, that might help, but don't see it happening. Like I said, I've been there a long time, grew up there from a kid, so I used to ride my bike in the street when there was a blinker, Now it's, I don't know, just don't think it's right, but
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we have one last constituent who would like to.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tom Fuse. I live at 23 Columbia Street.
Can you speak right into that mic, please?
Sure. My name is Tom Fuse,
There you go.
and I live at 23 Columbia Street. And that's also a racetrack. I agree with everything that's been said in opposition. We don't need this. We do not need this there. There's too much there now. We're not residential area anymore. We're being swallowed up by businesses, and all the water from everybody is coming, down the street, into the basements. It's not right. It's not right to make residents suffer anymore.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Anyone else? Anyone else? What is the wish of the body? Council Martin.
I'm very sympathetic to the folks that have been here, but this was at the council before. I think we made a decision that this was in the best interest of the city to try and sell this parcel. There has been a commitment by the developer to mitigate traffic, and there are many of these concerns that can be addressed at the Planning Board and Board of Appeals. I understand people don't want more congestion in their neighborhoods. I've lived on busy streets myself. I live on one now. It's not pleasant when you have young children on a busy street, but we are an urban area. I think we have a very severe financial crisis facing us right now. This is a very significant offer for a parcel this size. So, and I know that folks here would be disappointed, but I would, notwithstanding that, move approval and hope that their concerns could be mitigated at the Planning Board and Board of Appeals level.
Councilor Milanazzo?
I'd like to second Councilor Martin's motion to move approval. I truly believe that this is a result of the motion by the council in the past, and that we put it out to bid, and this is the first step to vote to transfer ownership of the property to this developer. I have confidence that through the planning board and through the zoning board of appeals, as well as the planning department, again, an issue that was brought up, traffic, that the traffic mitigation plan will be put in place. And again, if it's not, again, it's still, as Attorney Flood indicated, still has to come back here to relocate Edward Street. So again, as a first step, I'm prepared to vote for this this evening. And again, the people that did speak against this, and I respect the mayor because it is your neighborhood, Mr. Mayor, and we allowed this to be in the form, if you will, of a public hearing, even though it wasn't advertised as a public hearing and no one registered to speak. So we did, in my opinion, as a courtesy to you, Mr. Mayor, allow that. And I do have empathy and sympathy for the people that live in the neighborhood, but I really also have faith in the public bodies that will be looking at this going forward, that hopefully, as happened on Bridge Street, that at the end of the day, that whole intersection will be better as a result of this project and the relocation of Edward Street.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some time ago, when this thought was just a thought in the very first stages, I did talk to the people involved and asked, to make everybody happy, why didn't you look on the other side of the river where they don't have any CVS or Walgreens or any pharmacy or whatever? I don't see the development that good. And so my question is, had they not taken that suggestion and looked on the other side of the river? There's a lot of land available on that side. I was just wondering, from the people that are here that are involved with this, did you not look on the other side of the river? No comment? I don't know. Was the land not available for sale? I don't know. Nobody's answering me? Nobody's talking? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, but
I really don't have a definite answer, Councilor Mercier, to that. I know that this piece did become available, and they did look at it, and they've been working with the city in planning this proposal. So I really don't know anything across the river that is for sale. I really don't.
You don't know?
No, I don't.
Well, I know it was a response to a request for proposal with this land available. I understand that. But in the meantime, knowing what you were encountering, I thought maybe you would look elsewhere for other land to build it. That's the only thing that I brought up to say to the people involved. Having said that, and I do respect everybody that came to the podium, and I usually have an idea, some type of belief that what's best for the neighbors is only known to the neighbors that live there. However, I did meet support for it and opposition for it. Therefore, you have to weigh both ends against the middle and say, okay, although there's good and bad people that are supporting it, and I did meet with the people on Edward Street soccer field side, Edward Street side, the people were supportive of this, and rightfully so. I did meet and hear from people that are not supportive of it. So therefore, I have to step back and look, what's the next step? The next step is, to me, what is in the best interest of the city? And a lot of times in life, things happen that you're not happy with. And I'll give you an example of that. My mother lived on Burnham Road many years ago, and right in her backwoods, where she would see all type of animals, was a development called Merrimack Meadows that were looking to build housing condos there. We were opposed to it. We were opposed to the change. We liked the quietness. We liked the fact that we could see animals in the woods. We loved that nobody abutted us on that side. We lost. Merrimack Meadows did build. They've been wonderful neighbors. It was housing available that once was vacant woodland. So I think that I want a city that's vibrant. I don't appreciate sitting in traffic. I don't know how much mitigation is going to take place here, but I believe the people involved made promises, and I believe they're going to keep them. I can only hope that the different venues like the planning board and the zoning board will monitor this to make sure that promises that were made are promises that are kept. I know that CVS on the Pawtucket, that was the worst intersection, is the VFW highway on Bridge Street. That's number one. And yet I don't think CVS did any mitigation to the people in the city or whatever. These are the people that will. I think they could mitigate to the cows come home, but we got a bridge that is not going to take any more traffic than it can actually hold. Having said that, I'm weighing both factors, and we do desperately need the money, and it is zoned for business. I don't want to impede on the people that live there, but I'm torn right now, and I have to support the people that are going to be building, because we do need that money, and so I'm supporting the motion that's before us. I'm sorry, and I feel bad for the people.
Don't say sorry to me.
I know that the people on Cornell Street live there. I know they're concerned with the business on the corner. They would like to see a fence there. I'm going to work on that in a future motion to have some help so that people aren't coming out of an establishment and going into a street that is not an egress for them. So I'm going to be working with that and help them in other ways so that there's safety issues in place. But right now, I know it's a tough vote. I hear people talking, but I'm supporting the proposal that's before us. I know that it's difficult, but that's where I am.
Councilor
Sorry.
Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is far from a no-brainer, and, you know, you've written down a handful of pros and a handful of cons, and it's one of those decisions that really takes a lot of thought and contemplation. I do think that the traffic issue, I know when they were building CVS on Bridge Street, that was an issue. And I'd like to think that, you know, having that pharmacy over there may alleviate some traffic on Middlesex Street, where there's people may go there rather than Middlesex Street. We have some nice pharmacies around the city. I know that on Plain Street, that pharmacy has a large parking lot. And you know, when they built CVS, I know some of the residents were resistant, and the parking lot is so large that I think it actually alleviates some of the traffic flow, and that people can pull in and be comfortable and find a space, and they're not looking for a parking spot. So there's a convenience factor. Certainly the tax revenues are a factor, and I grew up in the Highlands. I've been down Middlesex Street thousands and thousands of times, and I know that the engineering, architectural engineering, will certainly beautify that stretch on Middlesex Street into what looks like a CVS, which is now the gateway to Centerville, and add to, I think, property values in a sense in that way. We're going to, you know, if we vote for this, the Edward Street residents will be happy. The Canal residents will not be happy. It's, you know, just one of those things that some people are going to come out of this and they're going to be okay and others are not. Again, when Attorney Flood mentioned that going forward we still need the approval of the council every step of the way, that's somewhat comforting in that some of these issues that are being brought up need to be addressed. I know the traffic study, the water problem, and there'll have to be a satisfactory engineering answer to some of these concerns. So I intend to support the motion going forward, and then probably decide at each incremental stop along the way that we're addressing the concerns of the residents.
Councilor Alakazandjian.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a tough vote where the neighbors have some concerns. I live in the Highlands, and I know how the traffic flow is on Middlesex Street, and I know what they're talking about as far as Cornell and Columbia using a cut-through, and maybe with Jeff Gomes, the traffic engineer, we can have him meet with the neighbors and see if they can resolve the people cutting through with those two streets. And I'm sure they can come up with some type of plan, whether it's a one-way or one-way at certain hours, or whatever the case may be, but whatever they can do to stop the cutting through from going from Princeton Boulevard to Middlesex Street. Yeah, like I said, it's a very, very tough decision. We've got about $500,000 worth for improvements between the soccer field in the back and also the intersection. where they're going to put new traffic lights, make that second lane going to right, taking a right onto the Rook Bridge longer than what's there now, brand new sidewalks, which I think will help out that intersection quite a bit. I mean, like I said, I live in the Highlands. Between my wife and myself, we go to either Rite Aid or CVS. What I think was going to happen, people are just going to split up. Instead of going to Rite Aid or CVS, they might just, well, let's go to Walgreens and see what's over at Walgreens. I think what's going to happen is going to split up the traffic. I don't think someone's coming from Chelmsford Street where there already is a Walgreens, or coming from Centerville where there's a CVS there, are going to spend time and go to Walgreens when there's a pharmacy right in the backyard. They might come across the bridge, but they're coming across the bridge anyways to go to CVS or Rite Aid. So I don't really think there's going to be an additional traffic problem. There's going to be some, don't get me wrong, but I don't think there's going to be 1,500 cars a day. I can't see that. Like I said, and the tax revenue will increase immensely with this new building, new facility that's there. It's going to supply 25 new jobs. It's going to supply new jobs for construction. With these tough times right over here, I'm sure, we've got a lot of people looking for jobs. And this thing has to go to the planning board. And the planning board can put a lot of conditions on this to meet the neighborhood's concerns and make sure that it does fit the bill for the neighborhood the best way we possibly can. And also removing the neighbors from a flooding area and taking them and putting a better quality of life is a plus too. So I will support it, and I do feel for the neighbors, and whatever we can do, like I said, with the traffic engineer meeting the neighbors and trying to address that concern as a raceway between Cornell and Columbia, we'll do whatever we can to help them out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Elliott, then Councilor Broderick. Councilor Elliott, did you want to talk on this issue?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've spoken to the city solicitor earlier. I just would like to disclose that I'm a member of I'm the treasurer for the Lowell Youth Soccer Association that uses the Edward Street soccer field. That being said, I have attended neighborhood meetings, or at least one neighborhood meeting a number of months ago, listened to the residents' concerns on traffic, and I can empathize. I go over that bridge every single day, 2, maybe even 3 times sometimes. Traffic is a real issue in that area. There's no doubt about it. By the same token, the developers have also indicated that they will put in close to $200,000 in improvements to that intersection that are badly needed. Is it going to take away the volume that's going over that bridge? No. One of the speakers mentioned it. 4 lanes of a bridge is the only thing that's going to alleviate traffic and that problem, because it's not really people in the neighborhood. It's folks coming off Route 3 going into Tingsboro, Chelmsford, Tingsboro, Dracut, and New Hampshire. That's where the traffic congestion is. Mass Highway is conducting a study. Actually, NEMCOG is conducting a study in order to put to look at not only the counts, but to get the data needed in order for 4 lanes of traffic to go, all the way to Route 3. That's the problem. That's the solution. So I'm torn too. I mean, is it going to bring some more traffic? Inevitably, I think it'll bring more traffic. It's probably going to take away business from CVS and Rite Aid and some of those other places in the immediate neighborhood. That's the competition that that gives us good prices, I suppose. So I've been going back and forth too. What do we do? What's in the best interest of the city? The piece of land's been sitting there for almost decades now. What else can be built on it? We put it out. We're getting $350,000. I think the only other potential bidder bid, what, Mr. Manager, was it $10,000 or something? $8,500. So it's what can we do? Regardless whether this goes in or not, that intersection needs work. I don't see a bridge coming in the near future. I don't see the city having close to $200,000 to put better signalization in it, and to expand that right-hand turn to get more traffic off Middlesex Street. So, it's a tough one, but I think inevitably at the end of the day, you have to do what you think is right, and the right thing at this point is to get $350,000. And again, it is zoned, so I'm sort of reiterating everything that has been said. And again, I emphasize with the traffic problems in that situation. I think to some degree, the signalization will help. And all the improvements that will take place. It's not going to solve the problem. The only thing it's going to solve is at a bridge. So I will support the proposal, and really will, I think we should all follow closely the planning board and zoning board, order of conditions or improvements that they will inevitably recommend. So, thank you.
Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support this as well. I think that this is a very difficult vote. Many of the reasons have already been put forward. I think sitting here as a city council, we have to look at what's best for the city, and it's not just about the money. And I know none of the councilors here would put the $350,000 above the quality of life for the residents. But we have to rely on what experts are telling us here, professionals. We've got a developer here who's not only willing to work with the city and work with the neighborhood to try and mitigate, but also willing to spend their own money to do so. We're offered $350,000 versus the next highest offer of $8,500. Creation of jobs, the economic somewhat stimulus that comes with this development. It's a very difficult situation here. I think that what we have to keep in mind is that this is going before the planning board. The planning board's job is going to be to deal with the mitigation and deal with the neighborhood issues. I empathize with the people that came out, and I congratulate you for coming forward and putting forward your position in your strong feelings, and because it is your life and it is your home. But I would encourage you to please stay focused and go to the planning board, and having been a former member there, I have full faith that they will do what's necessary to make sure this is the best it can be. It is not going to alleviate all the traffic problems that exist over there, but it should certainly mitigate, at least not add problems, but probably mitigate what's there. And I think that, it would be wise for everybody involved to participate in that process and make sure that the project is the best that it can be. I don't see any other result here in sitting here representing the entire city that I just think that is a fiduciary duty. It's the best deal we can do, and I think that it can end well. It's not going to be, I'm sure some people are not going to be pleased, but it can end better than I think is being anticipated by the neighbors. And I agree with Councilor Alan Kazanjian that I think that in the meantime it would be a good idea if we look at some type of means of control or whatever we can do for Cornell and Columbia Street. If that is true, that it's going to become more of a cut-through, what can be done there? I know there are a number of cities, streets in the city that have that same problem. I'm not a traffic engineer, but I would ask Mr. Manager that if we could have Mr. Gomes take a look at that and see what can be done, whether it's, at certain times of the day. I don't profess to know. But what I do know is that there is a process here, and it properly goes before the planning board to discuss these plans and this mitigation, the zoning board of appeals for what they need for the drive-through, and then it does have to come back to us. So there is another bite at the apple here. This can't be completed until we do something with Edward Street. So we do have another look at it. We can review again whatever the final plans are, and hopefully make sure that it's the best it can be. But I intend to support it, and I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Kazanjian?
Thank you, Mayor. Is there any way we can have the traffic engineer, Jeff Gomes, meet with the Kaufman Realty, providing this goes through, and not just the intersection at Middlesex and Wood, but the intersection at Pawtucket Boulevard and the Rook Bridge? Maybe extend that light somehow, because see the traffic is getting backed up, and I don't think the light on the other end, we got plenty of room for the cars to go, but for some reason it's holding it up. And maybe they can meet with the traffic engineer and come up with a game plan, or if they have to put new lights in, they can maybe do that also. Does the manager have something to?
Mr. Manager?
Counselor, certainly if, we'd make the traffic engineer, I'd make the traffic engineer available to work with the developer, and I anticipate that will be occurring during the planning board process in any event. But certainly, we would make him available to try to put forward measures that would mitigate the issues there.
The whole road work that they anticipated doing, is that intersection by the boulevard part of that also, or not? Was that brought up?
I do not believe so, no.
No?
No.
Okay. If my colleagues would allow, I'd like to briefly speak on this issue. I can count the votes. I know the votes are there to support this. And it's been said earlier during the debate, we can use the $350,000 because the economy is on a downturn. It's true. The economy is only temporary. This drugstore will be permanent. I went into the CVS drugstore on Bridge Street, and that was engineered perfectly. You could go in off Bridge Street, and the only way out is onto VFW Highway. There's a difference. That store is 12,000 square feet. It's enormous. This store is going to be 1/3 of an acre, 15,000 square feet, on 1.6 acres of land. And it's true, there's 28,000 cars a day that traverse over the Work Bridge. 14,000 at night, 14,000 in the morning. The difficulty with this construction at this site, if the brightest and smartest engineer from MIT tried to straighten out that intersection, they couldn't. Houdini couldn't straighten out that intersection. The traffic is backed up to Dunkin' Donuts, and Council Kazanji, you know what Dunkin' Donuts is, it's right up the street. The traffic is backed up from Dunkin' Donuts over the Work Bridge. How is anyone going to get into that drugstore, and how is anyone going to get back out? It's a 2-lane antiquated bridge servicing antiquated roads. The traffic from Drum Hill is immense. Middlesex Village is not the only neighborhood that's going to be affected by this. Pawtuckaville will too. Pawtuckaville will be affected too. I know the votes are there. I'm not going to belabor the issue, but I just want to let you know that there's 100 people that live in the condominiums, people representing them this evening, and there's probably 250 that live in that entire neighborhood. None of them want this drugstore. 1.5 miles from this site, exactly 1.5 miles, there's a Walgreens drugstore on Plain and Chancellor Street. There's a CVS and Rite Aid drugstore in the neighborhood. That's the drugstores that I go to. The CVS drugstore is open 24 hours a day. They service 1,300 people a day. So to say that this is going to attract another 1,500 cars is not a fallacy. But business is business. The drugstore will be built. And Mr. Manager, I would ask, after we take the roll call, that the Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, every agency we have in this city to work with these people in this neighborhood and make it sensible. The plans for this drugstore now are ridiculous. One way in, one way out. It's mind-boggling. Jeff Gomes and all the traffic engineers that ever come out of an engineering school could not straighten out this intersection. Could not. So I'm going to read second reading by title. We'll take a roll call. Second reading by title, authorizing the city manager to accept the proposal of Kaufman Realty Incorporated in the amount of $350,000 to purchase property located at 1769 Middlesex Street, Lowell, and to execute all documents necessary for the transfer of the property. If there's no more discussion, no more debate, Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
No.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kazanjian.
Yes.
Counselor Lenzi.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 nay.
Before we move on with the agenda, Mr. Manager, could you verbally promise these people you will work with them through the planning stages and make sure that it makes some sense to not only to that neighborhood, but to the entire city of Lowell?
Mr. Mayor, absolutely. I mean, it's, and we certainly are committed to doing that with any neighborhood, but working through planning and development, and in particular the traffic engineers, you know, and our own engineering people with regards to the drainage issues, we will certainly ensure that their voices are heard and considered in the process.
I just want to add, Mr. Mayor, that I worked on the CVS project, and the reason it came out so well is because we worked with the neighbors in that project, and we'll do the same thing. I'll make a commitment that we will work with the neighbors to try to come up with the same type of result.
Attorney Flood, the traffic into CVS and the flow of traffic out of that facility is unique. You cannot do that at this drugstore on Middlesex Street.
We might come up with some alternative.
You better call Houdini.
We will work on it.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Moving on with the agenda. Order. To transfer funds for electricity at City Hall on Arcan Drive, ordered by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows, that the amount of $50,000 be transferred from City Manager's contingency account number 01237056-561 700 to Messenger Electricity account number 01574-152-520-100. Second reading by title. To transfer funds for electricity at City Hall, Arcan Drive. Any discussion, any debate on this particular issue before us? None? Roll call.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kazanjian.
Yes.
Counselor Lenzi.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Okay, moving on with the agenda. Authorizing an increase in the demand fee as allowed under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 60, Section 15-2 is amended, whereas the General Court pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 60, Section 15 allows municipalities to increase the demand fee made upon delinquent taxpayers from $5 to an amount no greater than $30, and whereas the City of Lowell desires to increase the demand fee as allowed under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 60, Section 152, Section 2 is amended, now therefore be it voted by the majority vote that the City of Lowell charge of each written demand issued by the collector a fee of $30 to be added and collected as part of the taxes authorized by the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 60, Section 15-2, effective as of March 25th, 2009. Second reading by title. Authorizing an increase in the demand fee as allowed under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 60, Section 15, Section 2 is amended. Council Rita Mercia.
Mr. Mayor, we had this discussion at the Finance Subcommittee whereby it kind of counterbalances my motion. So if I could take my motion at the same time to see if we can like offset this to some degree. My motion regarding to investigate amnesty to eliminate fees and fines on excise taxes. My motion is for amnesty, and I'm going to support a raise on demands, so I got to try to justify this to some degree. So if we could suspend the rules and allow my motion to come forward so that we can talk about the balance here. There's a balance somewhere.
Motion to suspend the rules by Council Rita Mercia, seconded by Councilor Kevin Broderick. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Motion. I'll read the motion. City Council requests motion by Council Rita Mercia. City Council requests the City Manager to investigate amnesty to eliminate fees and fines for excise tax. On the motion. Seconded by Councilor Kazanjian.
As I said in the Finance Subcommittee before, probably people were in tune with this, and I'm wondering how I can justify supporting an increase in demand from $5 to $30 when I'm asking for my motion for amnesty. But to talk about my motion to some degree, I try to respond to constituents' concerns, And this is a concern from a few people, namely this one person who will remain nameless, so she'll probably be arrested when I get through with the discussion, who said that she has some excise taxes that she should be paying, but because of the high demands on the fees and the fines, there's no way that she could do that. And she was looking on the internet, and it talked about the IRS website, whereby the IRS in the state is offering amnesty in the month of April for income taxes owed, that they're willing to sacrifice the fees and the fines so that people can get amnesty and just pay their income tax that they owe. Having said that, she asked me if there was such a thing as amnesty for her excise tax, because although she knows about public transportation, she desperately needs her job, which is in Pepperell, and she's driving around without a valid license because of the fact that the fees and fines are too excessive for her to pay, where if we offered a similar plan of amnesty, she would be willing to pay the excise tax, but the fees and the fines are too excessive for her to, it's mind-boggling, especially in this economically hard times. I won't divulge this person, but I will say that if you could investigate the way to do that, yes, I could probably support the increase, which hasn't risen in 18 years. I understand where you're going, and I know that you made a point that there are people out there that do have the money and just won't pay. On the other hand, there are people out there that want to make the slate clean. They want to start over. They want to pay what they owe. But the fees and fines are so excessive, they just can't do that. So there must be a balance here somewhere. So, I mean, I will support your request if you will look at leniency for people that are trying to start out and wipe their slate clean and make amends and do the right thing and get their license and legitimately be on the road. I'm not condoning the fact that she should be on the road at all.
Mr. Manager?
But anyways.
No, Counselor, I think that we will get right on that investigation and come back with a report to you very promptly with,
right.
with that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councilor Kazanjian.
Thank you, Mayor. How much money is delinquent on the excise tax? Do we have that number? Mr. Moses, do you?
Actually, we tried to get that number for tonight. Another counselor had asked the question. Unfortunately, to run through all the bills requires several hours of computing time, so we don't have a figure right now. And I don't have last year's financials, but I could, pick that figure at the end of the year. I can report next meeting.
Well, I'd like to get the report because I think the amnesty this idea might work, and find out what the number is delinquent and what it is the fines and the fees versus the excise tax itself. And
if Mr. Moses can run that last year's in a couple minutes, so we'll.
Okay.
Gee, I should have called you today instead of who I did call, because it was running too slow today to get that information.
Councilor, you all set with that question?
One other thing, if we do this amnesty, maybe we can have the fees in effect after the amnesty. We'll give them 30 days or so for this amnesty if everybody's on board with it, and then set the fees up right after that. So, like as Councilor Rita Mercia stated, why jump the fee up right now if she wants to give people an amnesty? I'd rather get something than nothing. I mean, if you do have some type of amnesty, you can save some money and eliminate the fees and the penalties. At least we're going to get something, and like I said, instead of nothing.
Mr. Manager?
Again, we're going to do some work on this. We've done just a little bit so far. It's in all likelihood, it would appear that putting together an amnesty program will probably require some special legislation, because a lot of this is by statute. A large chunk of the demands that we send out, as I said earlier, aren't necessarily hardships cases. Certainly we're cognizant of that. We try to work with people in hardship cases whenever we can. A large bulk of our demand notices are people that simply choose not to pay, either on their excise bill, their property tax bill, their water or sewer bill, And, you know, in many cases, in fact, they're businesses that we're dealing with that are not making the payments. A large number of the motor vehicle excise tax bills that we send out here in the city do go to businesses. Certainly not the majority, but a large chunk. And in many cases, those are the ones that we have the problems that we have to get the demands out for. Again, I think that we're very interested in trying to work something, as we do in many cases with people that are experiencing hardships, but this opportunity lends itself, you know, Councilor Mercier mentioned the 18 years. I think it's even been longer than that the $5 demand fee has been in place, and it really hasn't kept pace with the costs and with the you know, the punitive nature that we're trying to get people to pay their bills on time, like most of the people in the city do.
Well, I'm just throwing out some ideas. Maybe we can eliminate the businesses and just concentrate with just the residential. And like I said, it'd be nice to give them 30 days and wipe the slate clean, start over fresh, get some money coming in instead of just pursuing it, and they just year after year they don't pay, and just builds up, and the city ends up with no money at all. I mean, so.
Well, we always end up with our money, one way or the other.
How long does it take? Does it take?
Sometimes it could take a couple of years.
Yeah, where we can use the money now. I mean, instead of waiting 2 years, and we've got to have, you know, all the paperwork and send people out for notices and money the city's paying out, and maybe it'll work that, you know, we try to cut it down now and get the money now.
Yeah. You know, I certainly understand the concept behind the amnesty programs, and again, it's, you know, again, we recognize the hardship issue. The other part of it, though, is sort of a fairness to all the people who do pay their bills on time, that they
I totally agree. But if someone's out of work, and especially in the tough times that we have now, I mean, if you have a continuous offender, I mean, he's been doing for a number of years with good times. I mean, naturally that fella just doesn't care, or individual, you know.
The figures I have are as of June 30th at the end of 2007 and 2008. Both years they were roughly $2 million in receivables. That is probably one of the higher points of the year. If you probably pay attention to your own personal bills, you know that you get billed in February, sometimes March, for most motor vehicle excise taxes. So they're due in March and April. Demands usually don't go out until June. So this is capturing the high point. The low point is probably toward the end of the calendar year, probably December or so, when the number may be less than half that. So that gives you a feel for that's on an annual billing of somewhere around $7 million.
Okay. Now that $2 million, it'll take 2 years to get that $2 million that we're pretty much saying that was delinquent.
A good portion of that will probably be abated. There are people who've moved away, and we can't reach them. We levy a demand, and they're not in state. That happens quite a bit, and with a large student population, that's a lot of them.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Lindsay, Councilor Broderick, and then Councilor Martin, and Councilor Elliott?
Thank
Councilor
you.
Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What percentage, we mentioned businesses and things, but is there a large percentage of young adolescents who may not pay their excise tax? Or, I mean, is that another category that...
It's hard to, we don't have sort of the demographic information
those statistics,
as much as we have on business uses. And
I just think that, yeah, when we talk about amnesty and not paying excise taxes, I immediately think of young adolescents who really are overwhelmed with insurance payments, which, you know, are extraordinary compared to, you know, what I pay, what my children pay. It's usually double or so. But right now, the excise tax that goes out, and like Councilor Rita Mercier, I don't want to indict anybody, but I have seen a couple of overdue, and I know they've probably tripled because they haven't paid them. But there's only a demand fee of $5 right now. Is there another fee that would make that original expense triple what it might have been originally?
There's a demand fee that's $5 and roughly 30 days, we wait 30 days, and then a warrant goes out. The warrant is not an arrest warrant. It's a term for a second late notice. That, I believe, has a fee of $12 and a delivery of $7, so it's a $19 fee on top of that. Then several months go by, and ultimately, if not paid, the registry of motor vehicles, we mark them at the registry, and they owe the registry a fee. It doesn't go to the city.
Okay. So, yeah, that costs, just like your taxes with penalties and fees and things, can escalate to the point where maybe you can't get caught up, you know, or you can't reach it. So, yeah, I think this is a good motion, and I think it should get some serious consideration to help some people, especially now. And I keep going back to the young adolescents who just, I don't know how they pay for their insurance on their cars, never mind the cars, that might need a break, but are willing to pay and wipe their slate clean and try to get caught up.
All set, Council? Council Broderick and then Council Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a good motion. It's something that it should be looked at carefully and examined. And I think it would be, as presented, something that would, if it could be done, and I don't know how it could be done, basically it sounds like almost it's a hardship. And I don't know how you could differentiate without hiring staff and getting into that examining on a case-by-case basis. The concern that I would have is that the demand fee, I assume, was put in place because there's a cost associated with collection to the city. And whenever it was put in 18 or 28 or 30 years ago, $5 was obviously worth more than $5 is now. Do we know, and I don't know if, I'm sure there's a way to calculate it, what does it cost the city to do these demands and try and collect this money?
It costs between $10 to $15 to just do the processing of the demands, is our calculation. But again, the demand is intended to be, the demand fee is intended to cover those costs, but also to be punitive. You know, much like, you know, if you're late on a credit card bill, the banks typically assess you $29 or $39 just every month that you are late on that.
So one of the concerns I have is that the people that are out there that are paying their bills and taking the people that can't pay it, they simply can't pay it, and those are the people that I think would all like to try and help and see if we could get our money back, so to speak, and call it a day, wipe the slate clean. But I think it may also create an incentive for people to use the city as a bank. It's a free loan. You know, if I know that next year we're going to have an amnesty month, you know, not personally, but there's going to be people that are going to be apt to just say, you know what, I'll pay it next year. I'm not going to get hit with the demand, the penalties, the fines, and the interest. I think that's a concern I have. I don't know if there's a way to craft this that, you know, for certain circumstances that people that have been current for X number of years and haven't been late and are faced with a hardship, the city could help them maintain, because it's not in anyone's interest. It's like someone like the situation with foreclosures. Mm-hmm. If we can help people, you know, get back on their feet and continue their quality of life and you know and provide for their family, I think we should be able to. We should do that. We all, you know, I think that's a great idea, but I am concerned that, you know, next we're going to have people that are saying, I didn't pay my parking ticket, and it went from $20 to $30. You know, if I just pay the $20, is that good? And basically, you know, we're going to be putting ourselves, or the city, in a position that we're going to start financing the people that we're targeting here, the people that can afford it and just simply don't pay it. And you know, of that $2 million, you know, hopefully, I think now that it's on our minds, hopefully we can get a report. Someone will remember to file a motion in say August, September, to see where we're at with that and see how the collection process goes. You know, I just see that it could be a slippery slope, and I think there's going to be a difficulty here of turning the city into people's own personal banks for small loans.
Right.
But if there's a way to do it, you know, to help people out on a hardship basis, I'm all for it.
Well, we do think that there's, again, we've done some preliminary research on this, and we do believe that we can, that it would require special legislation, but we have some models that we've talked about that we feel that we can put something like that together. At the same time, recognizing the financial issues that everybody's that the city is facing, and that includes our ability to deliver services to people and provide and in order to do that, we need to hold on to the jobs that we have. This $500,000 would be very helpful. But I do think that there are some options we have here with regards to the amnesty that we can put together and have probably for the next council meeting.
Council Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you take this out of the non-governmental world, it sounds like a late fee to me. You don't pay your bill in a certain time, and we've been talking about excise tax, but I assume it applies to real estate tax and water bills and whatever else we might send a demand fee or a late fee. My question is, at what point do you do that? I don't think not that I ever remember, I've not been on the receiving end of these things. We give people a 30-day grace period, 60 days. How long before you get something like this?
Okay, for motor vehicles, it's easy because there's one motor vehicle excise tax. You must wait at least 30 days until after it's due, and then issue a demand that, again, is due within 30 days. With real estate and water, where things are billed quarterly, it's a little different. The year is treated as one billing cycle, so you go through each of those quarterly bills. If at the close of the fiscal year there's a balance, then one single demand is sent out. So while you may receive 4 real estate bills, if you're delinquent at the end of the year, you only get one demand.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Council Milonasso?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support the motion for informational purposes, to get information back from the administration as to how best to go about doing something like this. And if we could, when we get that information, Mr. Manager, if we could look at what other communities may have been able to get as a result of waiving fines and fees in real dollars, meaning that if it's truly $2 million in our case, did a community, if they had an amnesty, were they able to get $1 million of that $2 million when they had the amnesty for 30 days? Because again, I would want to see and review some real numbers if we end up having a piece of special legislation back before this council, before we at least before I take a vote on it. I want to actually see some numbers. So again, for informational purposes, I'm happy to support the motion, but looking forward to getting some real numbers, because as was said by a number of my colleagues, it would be good to try to get the principal, if you will, which is the excise tax or the real tax back. But at the same time, most of our residents do pay their bills, and if we can define hardship, and again, have this council agree on what that definition would be in special legislation, so be it. But again, to move this along, I'd be happy to support it, to get information back from the administration.
Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, Mr. Moses, did you say that this, typically in the June time frame, we're looking at approximately $2 million in outstanding excise tax? I mean, is this an annual thing that comes, that we're consistently sending out bills, and there's a certain number of excise taxpayers that are not paying?
Yes, it's annual. The bulk of the excise tax gets sent out in the spring, and thus by June it's about what we would call ripe for demand. There are excise tax commitments that occur throughout the year. They're much, much smaller. Mostly they capture new purchases of vehicles and purchase of used vehicles, as well as very early in the year, usually January or February, they're picking up partial billings for cars purchased at the very end of the calendar year prior. The bill is actually, we may be in February 2009, and somebody may get a bill for a very short period of 2008. That's because that sale wasn't reported to the RMV until after the end of the year.
Right. I guess my point is the economy clearly has had an impact, and I think it's a good motion, because there's clearly people out there that have lost their jobs that, they just simply can't pay it. They're struggling to pay their mortgages and trying to balance all the other bills, and I think that makes sense to maybe do a one-time amnesty. But as you mentioned, this is a regular problem, that we have people that won't pay their excise tax, and we have to go out and spend money to go and get it back. So I think it's worthy of taking a look at and provide some help for those that really do need it. But I think it was mentioned, there were folks out there that are just they're not paying their bills. One other question, is this tied to registering your vehicle? Meaning if you don't pay your excise tax, that a tape will go over to the registry and you can't register your vehicle. Is that how we collect most of our excise tax?
It's not how we collect most of our excise tax, but yes, it is tied eventually to registration.
I should say, is that how we collect most of the delinquent excise?
No, it's not how we collect most of the delinquent. There's a small portion that ever gets to that point, but it is tied to both the registration and the license.
And the license?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Why don't we take a vote on Council Rita Mercier's motion? All in favor of the motion presented by Council Rita Mercier, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And the vote on the agenda item, authorize an increase in the demand fees. We haven't set a fee. What it will be, the high fee, Mr. Manager?
That's correct.
$30.
$30. Yes.
So everyone knows that you're going to be voting. The high fee is going to be from $5 to an amount no greater than $30. $30. I'll read second reading by title.
Is that going to start right away, Mr. Mayor? Are we going to wait till the amnesty, or will we talk about this amnesty, or how is that going to work?
Well, this is going to go into conjunction with the amnesty, I imagine, right?
The intent here was to have it take place immediately, and because the amnesty is more than likely to take a number of months, maybe even to sometime in the summer or fall, before the legislature would be able to take up that piece of legislation.
Okay, and
this is to help us with funding for the conclusion of fiscal year '09 and our budget planning for fiscal year 2010.
And if that amnesty goes through, it'll eliminate that $30 fee, is that correct?
If the amnesty goes through,
right.
then
Okay.
there'll be a period at which time, under certain hardship conditions, people would be eligible.
And that's basically what we're looking for, just to limit the fees and the penalties, but they're going to pay the excise tax itself.
Right.
Under hardship conditions.
Under hardship conditions.
Exactly.
Correct. Okay.
Second reading by title. Authorize an increase in the demand fee as allowed under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 60, Section 15, Section 2, as amended, and the fee will be $30. Any questions, any debate? None? Roll call.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian?
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi?
No.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Armin Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 nay.
If the council would allow, we could take something out of sequence. It's a petition. The gentleman has been sitting waiting patiently, and I'd like to take out of sequence Article number 14, and it reads, miscellaneous Burns and Levinson LLP for University of Mass. Building Authority requests city to abandon portion of Standish Street, and that will be referred to the Law Department by Council Milonazo, second by Council Armin Mercia. All in favor? It's on its way to the Law Department, and thank you so much for being so patient. We should have done this a long time ago. Thank you. Yeah, I got it. All right, moving on with the agenda, I have a communication from Christine Dunlap, who has offered her resignation to the Paula Memorial Library Board of Trustees, and the manager has indicated that he thanked Christine Dunlap for her service and dedication, and accept the communication by Council Milonazo, seconded by Council Martin. Accept the communication and place it on file. And we have some appointments. The appointments are Nathan Moore, 68 Canton Street, Lowell. Stephen M. Laporte, 108 Jeunesse Street, Lowell. Patricia J. Vondell, 141 John Street. Karen Davison Heller, 54 Parkview Avenue. And also reappointing Maria Lopez, 29 New York Street, to the Paula Memorial Library Board of Trustees. Any questions? If none, roll call.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian?
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi?
Yes.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Moving on with the agenda. Order to cover the mid-year fiscal year 2009 9C cuts ordered by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows: that the amount of $561,994.20 be transferred from various accounts, all of which are more fully described in Attachment A, to the manager's contingency account 01237056-561-700 as set forth in Attachment A. Second reading by title. Vote order to cover the mid-year fiscal year 2009 9C cuts. Any discussion or debate on this request? If none, roll call.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian?
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi?
Yes.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia? Yes. Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
9 yeas.
The last item on the manager's agenda, vote authorizing the city manager to implement the voluntary separation with incentive program, whereas the city of Lowell is anticipating a significant cut to local aid for fiscal year 2010, and whereas such cuts to the fiscal year 10 budget may result in voluntary employee layoffs, and whereas the city of Lowell will endeavor to do as much possible to either avoid layoffs or to reduce the number of involuntary layoffs for fiscal year 10, and whereas a voluntary separation with incentive program would further that goal. Now therefore be it voted that the city manager of the city of Lowell is hereby authorized to implement the voluntary separation with incentive program in substantially the form attached hereto. Second reading by title. Authorizing the city manager to implement the voluntary separation with incentive program. What is Councilor Rita Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was an issue that was brought up before the Finance Subcommittee this earlier, before the City Council meeting started. And at that time, there were a few of us, because it was not a full council, so we wanted to talk about this a little bit further at the City Council meeting, where we have the rest of the council here. And at that time, I suggested that there were a number of questions that I had in regards to being a little bit more specific. For example, I didn't know how we can absorb this communication and be expected to vote this evening without the proper numbers or merely guessing. But I had some concern, as well as some of my colleagues, like what is the parameter that outlines who's entitled to this incentive, how many employees would fall under this incentive, and that are considering retirement, how much money will this possibly entail, and what account will this come under when we will be taking this money. So, having said that, you are, Mr. Manager, aware of some of the concerns and questions before the council that they expressed to you, and I'd like to refer this back after we get some more information, refer it back to the Finance Subcommittee with the full council, perhaps a special, did we decide on a special meeting of the Council of the Whole for next Tuesday, I believe? I don't know.
That's the wish of the body.
That's what I thought.
Councilor Broderick, then Councilor Elliott, then Councilor Milonazo.
I can turn it over to the chair of the Finance Subcommittee.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to just bring the report in from the Finance Subcommittee, which is exactly what was mentioned. Amongst other things, we talked about the FY09 budget. The managers gave us an update on furloughs, and there's still a couple of unions that are still not participating yet, because one, the patrolmen's union, they don't have a contract, and there's two other small unions, one at the wastewater and one at the water treatment plant. So there's a transfer that we approved tonight to address FY09 shortfall of $561,000. The second item that did come up at that time was the proposal before us tonight on the early severance incentive, and a lot of questions did surface at that point in time, and members of the subcommittee, as well as members that attended, all the members that attended the Finance Subcommittee, thought it was a good idea to have a full discussion and deliberation on the merits, the pros and cons of this. And so it was, we didn't take a formal vote on it, but I think it was just understood that we would hold a meeting of the whole body, whether it's a special council meeting next Tuesday or at another point in time. So that's really the report of the Finance Subcommittee, and it coincides with the discussion on this item.
Council Broderick, did you?
Nope, that's good.
I think the consensus amongst the council is we certainly should have a meeting, and it could be on Tuesday, but what time would you want that meeting? Let's
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Do I hear 6?
Who'll give me 7
I heard that was Councilor Rita Mercer's furlough day.
It doesn't matter to me what time is.
5 o'clock's
How
fine.
many in favor?
Good.
How many
Nail
in favor?
it.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock is fine.
5 o'clock? 5 o'clock next Tuesday, there'll be a special meeting, and the notice will go out from the clerk's office, and the only thing that will be discussed at that meeting will be this incentive plan, and I think it's wise the council have this meeting, and the manager can come forward with all the advantages of this incentive, and disadvantages as well. And the manager and I were talking before the meeting, and, you know, no one wants to see anyone laid off. And there's 2 negatives there. You have one person laid off out of a job, but the other negative is the city has to compensate that employee with, compensation because the employee's laid off. So I think this plan has merits, and I think if we look at it carefully, it might make fiscal sense to address something like this.
So, Mr. Mayor, we're talking about next Tuesday, March 31st at 5 o'clock.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? So this vote will be delayed till then, and we'll put that off. And Councilor Elliott, did you bring that subcommittee report forward? You want us to take that?
That essentially was the report, Mr. Mayor, yes.
Okay.
So we can
Accept the
adopt
report
it.
as report of progress by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Martin. All in favor, signify by saying aye. The report has been accepted, placed on file. I'm going to move on with the petitions. Wire inspector, info wires for Lowell visiting nurse, Conduit, and Church Street. Accept and adopt accompanying orders by Councilor Lindsay, seconded by Councilor Kazanjian. The next petition, conduit location, National Grid requests place approximately 80 feet of conduit in Hall Street. If the council wishes, that will go to a public hearing April 14th. So moved by Councilor Milonazo, second by Councilor Ahmed Mercia. Flood Law Office representing Tremont Yard LLC request execute easement at 1 Tremont Place. That's referred to the Law Department by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Kazanjian. There's 3 claims, property damage, referred to the Law Department by Councilor Lindsay, seconded by Councilor Milonazo. Anything else on the agenda you can, before we go into motions? All set? Motion by Councilor Rita Mercia. City Council requests the city manager to contact the proper officials of the local stores who utilize shopping carts and have discussions on new wheel lock system and ask they comply with said system. Motion seconded by Councilor Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Monday, March 16th, this council was invited to attend the CNAG monthly meeting, which is the Centerville Neighborhood Action Group meeting, to discuss with us ongoing issues that affect their lives and their concerns in the neighborhood. We were presented with a slideshow of different sections of the neighborhood, and what struck me was that the trash is put out on Saturday, even though parts of Centerville's trash is picked up on Mondays and Tuesdays, but yet some put their trash out on Saturdays. So I'm saying, Mr. Manager, that enforcement is the key there. But what amazed me the most is that they showed and documented 24 shopping carts just thrown along the road in gullies and fields, creating blight and unkemptness beyond belief. This was a good count of carriages, though, but at times during a street walk, though, they have counted as many as 60 shopping carts. So I guess this was a very good day because they only counted 24 shopping carts. These shopping carts came from CVS. I wish those people from Walgreens were still here, because these shopping carts came from CVS, Market Basket, Walgreens, but not one shopping cart came from Hannaford. Why was that, I wondered? Well, on each of your desks is the reason why. I put what I found out. I spoke to the store manager at the Drake at Hannaford because that was the closest one in that neighborhood, and the manager told me that they put a system in place that each cart is equipped with a sensor in the wheel, and when the shopping carts get a certain distance from the store, the wheel will lock so the carriage does not move and it's left behind in the parking lot as it should. These shopping carts do not get abandoned in your neighborhood of Centerville. And I want this opportunity to be made available to all our neighborhoods and in every store that has shopping carts. I have provided this information to you, Mr. Manager, and through this motion, I would like someone to be designated to inform all the store owners that have shopping carts to see what they can do to alleviate the blight caused by these carriages and to help keep Lowell beautiful. After all, this service, though rather costly, and I'm sure it might be costly, will save the stores money in the long run to minimum merchandise loss and reduce asset and labor expenditures. With this system in place, it will keep the carts where they're supposed to be. Now, let me tell you another thing about these carts that I probably shouldn't even tell you, but I will tell you. Shoplifters using these shopping carts to roll out carts of merchandise can now be a thing of the past because a sensor in the cart can detect that a fully loaded cart of unpaid for food will not allow the carriage to go through the store door. And you know why when you read I saw the video, so you probably don't know, but I'll tell you about it after. So, Mr. Manager, whether we adopt the shopping cart, there is no shopping cart ordinance, so if we can...
I believe there is.
I had the city
Manager,
clerk.
Maybe you can...
I thought we had one, but we couldn't find it.
I don't believe we have one in the city, but
they have one in Worcester.
Worcester has one, and I have a copy of that.
And depending on how successful your talk and your designated person is with this issue, will depend on my bringing forward a shopping cart ordinance similar to what Worcester and Jen Myers over there Googled and found it and sent it over to the City Hall. I honestly thought we had one. I had one, someone investigating in here, and I couldn't find it. I kind of thought we did, but I think it's a good idea. I know it's costly, but in the long run, it'll pay off the businesses, and I think it's something we should explore a little bit. I hate to be telling you what to do, but I think if we could designate someone to meet with the different businesses that have the shopping cart and see if they could put in a plan. I know that Bridge Street Market Basket, when they get fully opened with the transformation that'll take place, they're going to put it in.
Right.
So that'll be a good thing.
Mr. Manager?
If I could, Council... Oops, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Manager.
No.
I was just going to say, Councilor, I had the opportunity to be at that meeting as well, and it was very impressive. I actually never knew about that these things existed.
Me neither.
I think our best bet might be just to go right to an ordinance. I think that you're going to get cooperation from some of the stores. Certainly, Market Basket on Bridge Street has indicated that they're interested in doing something like this. You're going to get, but you're still going to have other stores that no matter how much we send staff people out to talk to them, they're not going to do it. If I could, I would recommend that we simply go
one
to
goes hand in hand, and so sure, I honestly thought we had one, but we couldn't find it, so maybe we don't.
So maybe bringing that ordinance forward to the city council in response to your motion, and then we'll get it on the books.
And I'll support a demand fee increase, fine, and everything else.
But no amnesty.
No amnesty there. Then maybe they'll initiate this system into their parking lot to keep those carriages where they belong. Therefore, I will support a no amnesty there.
Councilor
Thank
Elliott?
you.
I think this is a good idea. In fact, the Market Basket on Broadway Street has one of these gatekeeper systems in control, and I'm embarrassed enough to say that I only know because when I was shopping there, I had to park in a housing authority place, and because there was so much snow, and when I went to roll my cart to my car, I was abruptly stopped, and I lost some of my groceries, but it really is a good system, and it makes sense, so you're not seeing all of these carts, in places where they don't belong. And, I know it's a hardship for some folks that walk to the store, but, they'll have to get, the carriages that they can pull. So it does make good sense, and I bet you it is a good thing for, the store owners, because these carts have got to be expensive, and so I think it's a great idea. And
Stopped you from putting it into the Lowell Housing Authority parking lot.
Well, normally I wouldn't take a cart anywhere, but there was no place to park in the parking lot, so consequently, in any event, that was a tough way to learn about it, but it's a great system.
It is a problem in every neighborhood that is in the vicinity of a supermarket. And those carriages, many times, bring the carriages back to the supermarket, and it gets to be a pain, really.
Yes, it does.
Did Councilor Lindsay, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. I can see where this is going. Do we have an excise tax, Tom, on shopping carts? I mean, these are smart carts.
Actually, they probably are accessible as personal property.
Personal property.
I do not know that for sure, though.
I can see this coming. Excise tax on the shopping carts, demand fees,
Yep, there you go.
revenues.
It's all set.
It's all the same.
There you go.
Any other discussion on this motion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, the motion carries. Next motion on the agenda. City Council requests the city manager take the necessary actions to facilitate an elderly and disabled drop-off zone at 145, 183, and 227 Gorham Street, and request no parking restriction on both sides of Summer Street Extension. Seconded by Councilor Milanowski.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. 145, 183, and 227 Gorham Streets are all entrances into Bishop Markham. There's no parking over there. It shouldn't be, but there should be drop-off allowable. And it's not just for the elderly. There are disabled people that live there as well. As far as the no parking on both sides of the Summer Street Extension, we called it the Summer Street Extension because it's not taking a right from South Street up to Summer Street to where the old unemployment office is, but it's to the left of the South Street into the, driveway area to the entrance of Bishop Markham. But people park on those sides of that little short extension of Summer Street, and they're having a very hard time with fire apparatus, like a fire engine, to be going and making that turn. And when those cars are there, they're not supposed to be there, but the police hands are tied because there's no signage that says no parking. They need to have that there. So I'd like to refer this to the traffic engineer to put on to the ordinance, the quarterly, chapter 13.
Okay,
Thank
all
you.
in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, the motion carries. Motion by Councilor Kazanjian. Requests that the City Council initiate action to change the charter as it relates to the number of candidates required for the city to hold a primary election. Seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. I might say this is an excellent motion.
Thank you, Mayor. It's basically, we have an election coming up, and I believe the last election, we waived this permanently election to save approximately $50,000 to $60,000. And what I'd like to do, and we went to the state legislature, we reluctantly did it, and what I'd like to do is just change the charter. I think it's anything over 18 now, we have to go for that election, and this way here, I'd like to refer it to the Rules Subcommittee with the city solicitor and see if we come up with a game plan and maybe bump it up to 25, and this way here, if we have 25 or more or over 25, we can have the election and go from there. But to eliminate one or two individuals and spend $60,000. Whether it's good times or bad times, I just think it's kind of crazy. And that's pretty much the
So you'd like to send this motion to the
the
Rules
Rules
Subcommittee?
Subcommittee and with the city solicitor, and so we
City
can work
solicitor.
together and change this charter. And I know it has to go through the state and
Home rule petition.
right, exactly.
Yes.
right.
I'm not so sure the Rules Committee have a jurisdiction on changing the charter, so I would suggest that it be go to the Law Department first and find out exactly what we need to do this. Because the Rules Committee has rules of this council, but not under the charter
I
change.
think, Counselor, the intent of the motion was to have the Rules Subcommittee meet with the Law Department?
Correct.
To
Oh,
get
okay,
some,
okay.
Correct.
some
Right.
direction, maybe? Is that what you were thinking about, Counselor?
Yes.
Get some direction and let the Law Department give us the lead and, it's, Counselor Martin?
Yeah, I certainly agree with the motion. I think, I think was one of the last, my first election, I think, was the last time there was a preliminary in 1999. I think every year since then, we've had not enough people and voted to abolish it, and it certainly doesn't seem to make sense to continue to do that. And so I think going the way, because we might not get it in time or something, the legislature could adjourn early and we'd be stuck. So I think it's certainly worth exploring the charter change avenue on this. However, I do think we should be mindful of, whether this makes it easier for people to run for office, whether it makes it more difficult for people to run for office. And I guess you can debate either way, whether, it's an advantage to incumbents or advantage to challengers. But another issue that I've been thinking about for a long time is the filing deadline, and whether we should also consider moving that. I think advancing it forward. Right now, you can run for city council and file as late as sometime in August.
August 5th, I think.
And I think, those of us here, we've all run successful campaigns. I think all of us realize you really got to start well in advance of August, usually 6 months at least in advance of that. So I don't think we're doing challengers much of a favor by letting them have until that time. And I think, moving up the filing deadline, might make us, more likely to decide and might create some openings for people. I think if you want to attract quality candidates are going to run if they think they can win. And one way they think they're going to win is if they think there may be an opening. And that's just the reality of it. I mean, when I first ran, there was an opening. It made it easier to announce and get up and running. So if there's no objection, I'd also like to, I imagine it's the same process and we don't have to agree tonight whether the date should be changed or what it should be changed to or whether it should be changed at all. But I'd like that report to at least outline those steps that would be necessary to do that. I assume they're the same, but they might not be the same.
Yeah.
It might not be in our charter, it might be state law. And
Who's on the Rules Subcommittee? I don't have, okay. So that could be incorporated, Counselor.
if that's okay with the maker of the motion.
Yeah.
That's fine. I know Councilor Martin's not suggesting this was political, but it's nothing to do with political at all. It's just whether it's going to be easy or hard to run for re-election or any type of election. It's just basically just saving money for the city. That's what it comes down to.
I do know.
Could I just,
Go ahead.
and I understand it's not political, but the results are going to have impacts politically, so I think we should be mindful of those.
I do know, oh, go ahead, Counselor Elliott and Counselor Lindsay.
I seem to recall the last time we went to the legislature, which was the last election. I think there was a sense from the delegation that, if we're going to continue to do this practice, which Councilor Martin mentioned, we've been doing it for a number of years, we should probably consider taking a look at the charter and making an amendment rather than going back every single year, as this seems to be a trend. So I think it's a good motion. I think it makes sense to look at these things as time change to make it more efficient. And I mean, it's clearly always a cost issue to have to run 2 elections, and which is, the primary reason why we cancel it. But I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think the delegation was looking for something like this too. So,
Counselor Lindsay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a good motion. Councilor Martin said it's not political, but I don't see why we can't charge challengers and just call that a demand fee. But, see if I get a second on that.
Anyone else? I do know that we got strong feedback from Beacon Hill the last time we asked to take a vote to not have a primary. And the reaction from Beacon Hill was, this is the last time. We're not going to do it again. And I think they went through, it only took one legislator to say, no, I'm not, and that would have been it. We would have had to have a primary. So I think this is the move in the right direction. And if we have 19 candidates and the city spends $40,000 in a primary to eliminate one candidate, that's $40,000 spent foolishly. So I think this is a good motion, and the Rules Subcommittee will meet with the Law Department and come up with something that's sensible. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. The last motion of the evening by Councilor James Milanazzo. City Council requests the city manager provide a list of proposed economic development programs to help stimulate the local economy, seconded by Councilor Armin Mercia. Good motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. As we all know, we have a very good planning and development office, and it's my understanding, working with some of the federal stimulus monies that hopefully will be coming to the city. They're now working on putting together some new programs, be it low-interest loans, grants, and so forth, to generate new business in the community. So if we could, working through the manager's office, get a list of what those programs would look like, and probably at that time refer that to the Economic Development Subcommittee for review.
Mr. Manager?
Councilor, we are in fact doing exactly as you described. We do have some one of the block grant money that we're going to be receiving. The emphasis is on job creation, and so we're looking at it in ways that we can do just that in terms of private sector jobs that we can help create here in the community. So we're putting together some different ideas on that. I'll have to check with Mr. Bakey and see exactly where we are, but we'll get that to you as quickly as we can and get that on to the Economic Development Subcommittee. And again, it ties in too with the earlier communication that we had regarding the neighborhood impact. We still, we're still doing what we've done the last several years of having those weekly visits to different neighborhoods to do the inspections and so forth. But what we're really trying to do with this block grant money that we're allocating this year is focusing on a lot of resources into one neighborhood, turn that around, move on to another neighborhood on maybe a one-a-year basis to do all of that. But again, it all ties to that, what this motion's all about, of economic development opportunities throughout the city, and we'll get that report to you.
Thank you.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. The chair would like to recognize Councilor Bill Martin, appointed personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take a brief moment to thank folks who were able to come by. We had unveiled the portrait that I sat for while I was mayor, and I just wanted to say thank you to my colleagues that were here. We had many friends and family, but most of all to the people of Lowell. It was certainly an honor and privilege to serve as mayor of the city. It continues to be an honor and privilege to serve in this seat. I wanted to also thank Jack O'Connor from O'Connor Portraits, who was very gracious in all the assistance he provided in accomplishing the portrait. I was glad we were able to have a Lowell resident do it. I know we had a little slip up with the portrait, and apparently it's out for repair, but I know members of the custodial staff put a lot of effort in. It's not just as simple as you think, because it leads to a reshuffling, and I know, Mr. Mayor, you were helpful in figuring out how that was all going to happen. So again, thanks to everybody. It was it is a very humbling night, and I said it that night. I don't want to repeat everything I said last week, but I did want to especially thank Mr. O'Connor, my colleagues, friends, family, and the people of Lowell who honored me by letting me serve them. So thank you all.
And the attendance at that unveiling was immense. A lot of people, Bill, come out and. The manager and I discussed about trying to address some of the portraits and the wall out there. We're going to see if we can give it another coat of paint. It needs it, and to dress it up a little bit. So, before we adjourn, Sunday, March 29th. We'll be celebrating Greek Independence Day at City Hall, and I invite everyone to attend for the flag-raising ceremony. I have it on my schedule at 12:45, but there's a Mass at the Hellenic Trinity Church, and if you can make that Mass, that'd be wonderful. But I would suggest be in front of the church maybe at 12:30, 12:15, just to make sure you're part of that wonderful celebration, and as we honor the Greek community in our city. With that said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn by Council Milonazo, seconded by Council Broderick. Thank you for a wonderful meeting.